Hey everybody, Hank Linderman here. It's Sunday the 29th. I'm so glad to see you all. It's a beautiful day, a little bit windy and a little bit chilly. And I'm not in my formal campaign shirt today. I figured I could use a day off from that. We wanted to talk today, the title of today's talk, and I'm going to be doing this pretty off the cuff because I had a bunch of very interesting phone calls today. From various parts of the world. Spoke with our friend Dave Murphy from Liverpool. Dave, of course, had worked on our campaign in 2018, and he's helping now in 2020 if he ever gets released from the lockdown in Liverpool. But I wanted to follow up, first of all, on the stories about hydroxychloroquine, which we've been hearing is a malaria drug that can be used with some success in fighting the COVID-19 virus, provided it's given early and they combine it with an antibiotic and with zinc. That's been going on in various what are called off-label trials by physicians, where physicians are allowed to prescribe something different from what's supposed to be the disease that's on the label. They're able to prescribe this for another purpose, providing they can back it up later on and say, this is why I did it, and that they've got good reason to do it. So there are lots of stories around the web that you can find, one beginning in Australia, in Queensland, a hospital there, I think was the first to try it. There's a noted communicable disease expert in France who's done a clinical trial, and also a doctor in Westchester County in New York who has been successful treating his patients with it. Now, so far, those are all relatively anecdotal, and we now need to go into more organized trials. And apparently Governor Cuomo authorized one of those to begin last week in New York, in the state of New York, so that's good. I spoke with a friend who's a surgeon and also a molecular biologist and virologist, and he gave me a bunch of encouraging things to consider. The first one he talked about was that hydroxychloroquine is only one of, I think he said something like 10 other approaches that are being used to find an effective way to combat the disease. So I thought that was encouraging. Now that we've gone past the off-label portion and we're going into the more serious studying, that's amped the level up a little bit, but it's going to take some time, and so we need to be patient. I also spoke with him. Let's just move right into China. You know, it's been common lately that we blame China, or China is getting some of the blame. President Trump wants to call the virus the China virus, the Wuhan virus. Most of us had never heard of Wuhan. And a friend reached out and said, you know, I'm even hearing rumors around the web that this virus might have been developed in a germ warfare laboratory in Wuhan. So I spoke to my molecular biologist friend and said, is that even possible? And he said, no, in this case it is not. He said, when you go in and splice in a gene into an existing virus and do things like that, he said, there are signs, there are markers that you can find. He said, there is none of that in this virus. This is a naturally occurring virus. So let's please, unless we find some other fact-based information, let's let go of that idea that this is part of some nefarious plan by the Chinese. I wanted to personally blame our supply chain, because here in the United States, probably everything I'm wearing, everything each of us are wearing, almost all of it probably came from China. And we have decimated our own domestic supply chain over the past 30, 40 years, and now everything that comes from China, including these diseases. So I ran that past my friend, and he said, no, this is not spread by things that come from China, it's spread by people who come from China. So he said, for example, there are folks that are here in the United States that are here legally, they're on a visa or they've become citizens and they're working in high tech, and they may have settled their families here, gotten married, and they've got kids, they're Americans, but they go back and visit their families over Chinese New Year, for example, or some of them went back to Wuhan. So this virus was carried by people. And until we're ready to reconsider how we travel about the globe, we all would like the idea of being able to, when we can afford it, to get on a plane and go pretty much anywhere we would like in the world. So until we're ready to reconsider that approach, these viruses will be reoccurring, and it is really about travel. So next I want to talk to you all about something that's offended me personally, and I think most of you know that I'm a musician. I earned my living for most of my life as a musician or as a recording engineer, and so there's a story in the Washington Post. I'm going to call it up right now and get a look at it. So the Kennedy Center received a $25 million stimulus, and their director announced yesterday that they would be laying off the entire National Symphony Orchestra. As a musician, of course, I'm offended. Yes, the orchestra costs money, but isn't that the purpose of the stimulus bill? This director who did this, by the way, earns $1.2 million a year. Apparently, a week or so ago, she said that in order to get through this crisis, she would cut her pay by 50%, so still $600,000 a year. With the uproar over telling the orchestra she wasn't going to pay them, and with the pressure that's come back from the musicians union, she's now agreed not to be paid at all. But that's a real problem. Isn't the purpose of these bailout funds, isn't it supposed to be to take care of people who work? And musicians, of course, need support. I want to show you all, I'm wearing a t-shirt. Can you see the guitar? That's a Bill Asher guitar, and I want to send a shout out to Bill and Jessica. Bill built wonderful instruments, and I wanted to show some solidarity with my musician brothers and sisters. So I hope that this kind of thing, this kind of tone-deaf response by people who run even organizations like the Kennedy Center, that they think it's okay to lay off the line workers while they continue getting paid, is really a terrible, terrible thing. I'm moving kind of quickly today, and I'm doing this totally by the seat of my pants, and we'll be doing this, I think the time that we're doing this, 3:30 is kind of ideal, 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern. The last thing I wanted to end with is to let you all know that I was invited to a virtual cocktail party last night on Zoom with 2 other couples, and it was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I didn't have high hopes for it, but it was a really wonderful experience. So if any of you are feeling lonely, that's a great thing to do, is to have a video chat with someone, spend some time in a virtual cocktail hour. You don't have to have a beer or a glass of wine. You can have a glass of water. And we had some wonderful conversation. By the way, one of the couples, one member of a couple was a very conservative Republican who we have talked before, but it was very friendly and good for the country when we can talk with each other across our ideological divides. One more thing. It's always one more thing. I have a friend who said, I just don't know who I can trust in the media anymore. And the idea of fake news has spread far and wide, and we are all very familiar with it. We, as humans, we tend to like news that we agree with, and we tend to hate news that we disagree with. So there are entire organizations built up that are there to give us what we want. So, for example, I have an idea what Fox News is going to say about any particular thing, so I don't pay much attention to them. On the other hand, even though I'm a progressive, I also know kind of what MSNBC is going to say, and I don't look at them very, very often. Occasionally I do if there's an interview I want to see. Instead, I look for information all over the web, and I look for stories that come from various parts of the world. And when I start to see facts align from one source with another source that they're not really related to each other, I start to get the hope that maybe I'm getting some vague sense of what's going on in the world. So I do want to suggest that to you all. I have two websites I look at every day. One is called nakedcapitalism.com, and the other one is called Meme-O-Random. Naked Capitalism is a site that provides links every morning with very interesting stories from all over the world. They have a certain angle that they follow, but you're very aware of it, and you can either accept it or not. Meme-O-Random, on the other hand, is it's like a billboard hit parade for political stories. So for a story to show up at #1 on Meme-O-Random just means that more people clicked on that story. So it's only an indication of what people are reading. It's very, very helpful. Anyway, that's it. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you all have a great day. We've got some sun out here in Grayson County at Falls of Rough, and hope you have some sun in your lives as well. We're still going to be doing this for quite a time, so everybody keep strong and keep the faith and take care of your friends and your family, and I will talk to you later.